Welcome to Falcon Forward. It is July 2nd. We're already in July. We've got the 4th of July coming up. My son's birthday's tomorrow. There's just so much activity in my household. 250 years of American history right here. So about to
Yes.
cross that line. Anyways, Mike, how are you doing? I know you're traveling or you're kind of doing stuff. We're always doing stuff, but how's things out your way?
Fantastic. So birthday time of year with young Braden's birthday in America. And then today is my oldest 21st birthday. So
All right.
yes, so all sorts of monumental stuff going on in our families and nations' lives. So happy
Yeah,
birthday to all three of those important people.
exactly. Man, I remember so Braden's my first, and he'll be 7. So he's in his mind, he's a young man now, and I think I agree with him.
Yes.
But I remember I was in the hospital with my wife, and it was July 3rd, like afternoon, and I was like, "Rach, you gotta like the 4th of July, we gotta hold on for another 24." And she's like, she looked at me, and she's like, "You can shut up now." So, anyways, that's neither here nor there, but it's a very memorable moment in my early fatherhood.
Yes.
It was good. So, anyways, we're here to talk about a couple insurance things, update y'all on what's going on, some interesting news, some, I guess, just highlights that we want to bring up. So, I was listening to another podcast this morning, actually, as I was getting ready, just about insurance, which is basically all I do. If it's not insurance related, it's oil and gas, or I'm hanging out with my family. But their overall synopsis of the market right now: property markets are softening, litigation is getting more difficult. That's getting harder right now. But interestingly, this last week, so third party litigation funding actually got cut in North Carolina. So there's been a lot of conversation around that. I wanted to talk about what that is, why this matters, and maybe, what are the chances that this gets kind of, I guess, introduced to other states. So Mike, I'll kick it over to you, and we'll kind of work through a couple of these quick topics.
Yeah. So excellent. So this was welcome news for everyone. A few different ways we can measure that. Most people are fairly aware that politics in our country is this, no one gets along or agrees on anything. So in North Carolina, they passed in their on a 45-1. So 45 in favor, one opposed. So, if it's legislation like that, like that's usually, for the feel good stuff, proclamations of so and so's day in the city, or like very few votes are unanimous, or in this case, 99% unanimous. And what they did was they passed a law prohibiting something called litigation funding, third party litigation funding. And, what is that? What does that mean? So, what that means is you cannot take like a private equity company that says, we have no relationship to you, but we'll fund your lawsuit against whatever company that you want to sue. And so, kind of unpack like when would this happen or why would this happen? So if you think about it, in our society, in the US society, and this is why everyone who complains about the cost of their insurance, this is a large reason why your insurance costs what it does, is when an accident happens, it's viewed as almost a lottery ticket in US society, meaning that, oh my gosh, something bad happened to me. Who can I sue to make pay for this? And for certain things, like when there is a clear, someone did something bad and deliberately tried to hurt someone, yes, there should be lawsuits in those types of instances if the other party doesn't step up and first fix what they did, like acknowledge what they did was wrong and cover those costs. We don't always have to have lawsuits for every certain thing because, again, people will realize, oh my gosh, this is a terrible incident. I get it. Like, I'm at fault. Like, how can I fix this for you on it? So, but if you think about it, we've now gotten to a point where, again, anyone who's injured thinks someone else needs to pay for this when it purely could just be an accident, or even worse, that could not even be an accident. It could be someone who does something dumb on their own and is injured. And again, why should they get compensated by someone else for this? So if you think about how things were, let's say 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, if something bad happened to me and I went home and I'm injured and I'm talking to someone and someone's like, oh, you should sue. And let's say it's an iffy case, like, I wasn't paying attention or I was doing something wrong or I was doing something dumb. Because I mean, we've all heard stories about, the person who spills coffee on themselves and sues the person who gave them the coffee for millions of dollars, or people who are trespassing on someone else's property and they fall and get hurt and then sue for that. Or in San Diego, there was one where someone was fleeing the police. It wouldn't stop when the police wanted to pull them over. They're fleeing the police, and they crashed their motorcycle and got a multi-million-dollar payment because they were being chased by the police on stuff. So just all these types of things that can happen. If you had a frivolous case, you're going to go to a lawyer and you're going to say, hey, here's my case. And lawyers in a lot of these situations will take things on what's known as a contingency basis, meaning they don't get paid unless they win. So a lawyer is going to look at this and they're going to be like, hey, if this thing has a good probability of winning, I'll take it, right? And I think you have a good case. And why do they think that? Or why do they care about that? They want to get paid. And if something has no probability of winning, a lawyer is going to look at that and be like, sorry, I'm not going to waste my time in the unlikelihood that we're going to get a payout, because I know the law, I've seen how these things work, and you have no shot at all on this. And what that effectively does is that law firm is kind of creating a bar that you must surpass of enough things must have gone wrong in that situation. There must be enough, at least hints of negligence in these situations for an attorney to be like, oh yeah, this is worth my time of working for 3, 6, 9, 12, 24 months, however long these things take, spending my own resources on that, because I know that there's a high likelihood that I'll get paid on it. So if you imagine that's our bar, again, what do insurance companies do? They look at the law of large numbers. If they insure X number of homes, if they insure, this number of vehicles, if they have this number of liability umbrellas out there, that just through their law of large numbers and their use of data and statistics, they'll know that, okay, for this many customers, this is how many claims that we'll expect to happen just because we've been doing this 100 years and we have this historical data. Now, all of a sudden, you have these third-party companies coming in and going to those law firms and saying, hey, we know that you turn down 50% of the cases that come across your desk. And we know why you do that, because you know that they have no problem with these cases winning. The very smart people, when it comes to numbers, maybe a little challenged on the ethics front, on the PE side, will say, hey, we want you now to take every single one of those cases. And, the lawyer's response is, why would I do this? I'm not going to get paid. That private equity people are saying, don't worry about that. We will pay you for every single case that you take. And then in exchange for doing that, we want now a portion of it, of what comes in on it. And what these private equity companies know is that if they flood the legal system, which they have done over the past several years, that insurance companies are now going to be more likely to settle frivolous claims. And, if you spend $2,000 on attorney fees from what this private equity company would be advancing or paying in this case, and they're getting enough 10K settlements, and then some of them maybe 15K, some of them 20, 25, 30, they know that, again, just through their use of data and statistics, that this is financially a very profitable way for these guys to try and earn another dollar. Something that private equity folks are very good at. So, but it goes along, just because you can make money at doing something, again, it's blowing up a system that wasn't designed for that. So this clogs up our courts so that the necessary cases, the real ones that should be litigated or tried in front of judges or juries, it clogs everything up, and our courts just cannot function. We don't have enough judges. We don't have enough people signing up for or volunteering for jury duty to do all this. So it just jams up the whole system. And that's what's happened with litigation funding, and that insurance companies are now paying out more than they intended to pay out based on historical data. Court systems are getting clogged up where that real people or real cases aren't getting their ability to be heard in timely fashions, and that's why these things can take years to play out. And again, it's just not how our system was designed to do. And so you're now seeing the legislatures in these states saying, wait, hold on a minute. These private equity guys, they're always one step, it seems like, ahead of everyone else in how they can make a buck, and we're not going to allow it in our state. And North Carolina was the first state to do this, and the fact that they voted 45-1 against a very powerful lobbying trial bar is, again, pretty astounding to me. So anyways, I'll pause. There's a lot of talking right there as usual from me, but does that make sense, or questions on how that works, Peter?
No, I mean, I think it makes perfect sense. I'm honestly, I saw that headline. I was surprised that it occurred. Like it to me is surprising that we had common sense, I guess. But what are the like how quickly do you think, and this is such a hypothetical, but how quickly do you think that this changes anything with insurance in that state? Because to me, if I'm an insurance carrier, I'm thinking, okay, I only have to worry about real claims now. I don't have to think about certain things. I like I guess, do you think it really has an impact on any of those from a material perspective within the next, let's say, 2 years?
2 years, I think, would be pretty aggressive. I think this is more like if you're a consumer and you think my rates have been going up, my auto insurance rates, my home insurance rates, at least the liability portion of that have been going up, or my umbrella.
Hmm.
So I think realistically, like this is something that, hey, like this gets passed in North Carolina. There'll be appeals. There'll be, further appeals. Pretty resounding though that, 45-1 shows that, again, hopefully that they drafted this legislature with something that can withstand appeals. I think more realistically is 3 to 5 years where you start to see a difference. But, where this is good is insurance companies, when they charge what rates they think they need to charge, they use forecasts of if litigation funding were to continue like we've seen it, then here's what our 3-year, 4-year, 5-year, 10-year rates look like. Now, this modeling will come in and will certainly soften that. And then if enough time goes by and this goes through and private equity hasn't thought of a new way to try and bend the rules, then, very positive for all. And then also positive the direction, this article that we had come across noted that, California, Colorado, and Illinois are all considering the same type of legislation. Again, California, super powerful trial bar state, not
Hmm.
employer friendly at all. So the fact that, and then also, heavily 90 some percent, I think, is the Democrat to Republican tilt in the state. So the fact that their legislature is even considering this, uh,
Hmm.
wow, like this probably isn't something that's good overall for our country or consumers overall.
I have there's a guy that I used to go to high school with, and he became a litigation attorney, and he's kind of I follow him on one social media platform purely for entertainment. And like I actually learned like what the other side looks at, and it's pretty fascinating just to see what they're looking at from a like when they actually get a group of people to be backed by private equity, how that goes down. It's very interesting to kind of watch, and he's very public about it. I'm surprised. I won't share his Instagram. You can ask me personally, but
Yeah.
it's pretty interesting to see. Also, not the role of life I thought. Like he was not an attorney type person in high school by any means, and here he is. He's very successful in San Diego. So,
Yeah.
anyways, our next topic. So, if we can move on, unless you had any other
Yeah.
comments, but so auto insurance, uninsured motorist, underinsured motorist, all that. Most recent statistic came out. It's 1 in 3 drivers went uninsured last year. 1 in 3. The last survey that I read on this, I think, was from 2022, and it was 1 in 7. And I think that was a national survey they took. I think California was 1 in 4, but 1 in 3. That's astounding.
Yeah. It's a function of costs, right? If you're got to put food on the table and you have an insurance premium that's due next week and it's either going to go to one or the other, I'm not faulting the logic that goes into that. But, things that we talked about in our prior topic, the litigation funding that drives up everyone's costs on things. So,
Hmm.
these attorneys that were exploiting the litigation funding and the PE firms backing them, again, there's the saying, there's no free lunch. Someone has to pay for these things, and invariably it's in higher costs for everyone else. So we're not going to solve on this podcast the society challenges that cause people to choose one or the other, feeding your family or paying for your insurance costs. But again, without sounding like I'm too much on a soapbox, is if you're going to operate a vehicle, you should operate in a responsible way, which means carry insurance. That if an accident does happen and you cause injury or injure someone else's car, that you
Hmm.
have insurance that will pay for what the damage that you've caused. So,
Yeah.
again, arguing or going into detail on why people can be in that instance, but the reality is, okay, we're not going to solve it on this podcast conversation, and for our
Sure.
clients, they're also not going to solve it themselves. But it does leave them in a very exposed position of that, if I'm driving my car and I'm obeying all the rules of the road and someone hits me and they either have too low insurance or they don't have any insurance, okay, what does that mean for me? What am I going to do in that situation?
Mhm.
And so there's coverage that all our clients will carry, which is called uninsured motorist coverage or underinsured motorist coverage if they have too little. And it's designed to one, pay for your car so that if your car is damaged by someone else, that it's not something that you would have to pay for. What most people don't realize, though, is that your deductible will apply in those situations. So you'd have to pay for your deductible, even though you weren't at fault in that instance. And then if the insurance company is able to collect either via lawsuit or judgment that this other party can pay. Sometimes you come across people that just they can pay for insurance. They have assets, but they just whatever reason either carry too low insurance or they don't carry any at all. And in those cases, you can collect a judgment against those people. Have the money, you can force them to pay. In which case, your deductible would get refunded in those instances. Cars are cars, right? Some are very expensive, but I don't know of anyone that we know of that losing a car would physically bankrupt them. That's just not realistic. However, just imagine if you're injured and you cannot work, or you have one of our producers, his spouse was injured by an uninsured motorist driver many years ago, and it's 6 or 7 back surgeries later. It's been a significant lifetime of challenges and costs that she's had. That is something that could potentially, if not bankrupt, significantly alter your lifestyle, from paying for medical costs, from making up for lost salary if you're unable to work, or hiring someone, if you're going to, in a worst case scenario, like if you're paralyzed or something like that. I mean, you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not more, a year, that you weren't expecting to pay. Again, who's going to pay for that? If you have good uninsured motorist coverage and you have uninsured motorist coverage on your excess or umbrella policy, that's how you mitigate against that risk.
Yeah. It's such a tough topic, but because there is a sensitivity to all these things, right? And there's,
Yeah.
like you said, a lot of things to solve. If we travel across the Atlantic and we go to Belgium, right? It's a little different over there, right? And you brought this up. I just want to bring it up because it was interesting as we were kind of talking before we hit record, but
Yeah.
Belgium handles things a little different. And I don't know if I think I like it. So maybe we could share what they do over there. A little
Yeah.
different.
For the World Cup fans out there, Belgium versus the U.S. Is the next go round of games for the U.S. So I have my father's originally from Belgium. He was the only one in his family who immigrated, which is a long time ago, 1960s. But what's super cool about that is my cousins that I have in Belgium, I see as often as cousins that I have in the U.S. So, and that's been throughout our whole life. So quite special to have a relationship of people in a foreign country. It's cool. And maybe we were running low on things to talk about, but my cousin was making a comment on how many tickets he's had. Speeding tickets and traffic tickets and all these other types of tickets, like monthly type tickets. So, of course, having work in the insurance industry and, have that insurance mind. So I'm thinking to myself, like, man, how do you get insurance? The question, Kurt, how do you get insurance? And he kind of looked at me like incredulously, like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, doesn't all these tickets that you have, I would think your insurance would be sky high, or even if you could even get insurance on it, because he gets a lot of tickets, it sounds like. Not all that he tells his family about, so hopefully they're not
Sure.
listening. But, he again looked at me kind of incredulously and said, no, he's like, the insurance companies don't find out about your tickets. He's like, that's an invasion of my privacy. So I just found that very interesting and so I did a little research on how does Belgium work for their insurance. And so in Belgium, everyone pays the same level of insurance for stuff. So again, it's not quite socialism over there, but they definitely are much more of a socially focused country than it is in the U.S. And so everyone will pay the same level of insurance. And then if you go accident free, which of course your insurance company is going to know about because they're the ones who are paying out for that accident. So if you haven't called them that year, no accidents, then your insurance ratchets down, or your cost will ratchet down year over year over year. And if you get tickets, has no bearing on your insurance at all. But if you do get an accident, then you lose that kind of claims free, and you get bumped up, and you'll pay higher insurance for a number of years until it starts ratcheting down again after you start going claims free. So people get a lot of accidents in Belgium, very expensive insurance or difficult to buy insurance. People get a lot of tickets, but no accidents. then you can pay some of the lowest rates. So, and then again, it's framed upon this would be an invasion of your privacy if you share what your driving habits actually are. Versus in the US, we'll look at things like what's your credit? Where do you live? What kind of car do you have? If
Yeah.
you sign up for telematics, how often, how fast do you accelerate? So all these kind of characteristics that will come up with a very unique profile. And again, if you check low risk for all those categories, you're going to pay a lot less in insurance versus, again, that more socialized outlook in Belgium, where
Sure.
everyone will pay higher. So in the US, the very safest drivers would pay a lot lower than they did in Belgium. But conversely, in Belgium, your high risk drivers are going to pay less in Belgium than they would if they were in the US. So again, there's
Uh-huh.
no free lunch. At the end of the day, all the costs have to get figured out amongst that group. So I thought that was interesting. He did share with me though one thing that actually I would be somewhat in favor of, but in the U.S.,
This is what I liked about what you said. This was the
yeah,
thing I was like, I like this one.
yeah, inattentive driving or people not paying attention. Again, without boring people completely on stuff, the 1970s driving was very, very dangerous on the U.S. freeways and highways. It was, and so much so that towards the end of the decade, 1980-ish, insurance companies and the government and car manufacturers got together and they're like this can't go on. Like this is truly an epidemic of how many people are dying on our roads. And so they did a couple things. And for those who are my age or older, you'll remember like seatbelts were, if your car had them, they were lap belts, which did not really do a whole lot of good. And they were almost an optional, and the majority of people weren't using seatbelts at all. The other thing that people were doing that isn't necessarily good for driving was there was no social taboo on drunk driving. Like it was almost funny, like, man, Larry was plastered last night and can't believe he made it home, ha ha. People would laugh at cocktails over lunch the next day talking about that. So the government worked with car manufacturers and said, hey, we got to make seatbelts safer. And if you remember cars in the 1980s, they actually had automatic seatbelts that when you sat down, like physically the seatbelt like went over you, like you had no control
They
over
were
it.
so cool. I still think they're really cool when they do that. It's like, yeah,
It's
it's high
hilarious.
tech.
Yes. And then when people kind of found their way around that and like would unbuckle it afterwards, it would, create these, super annoying alarms on stuff. But it eventually got to a point where everyone started wearing seatbelts because your kid, they would do public service announcements that would, tell kids, tell your parents to buckle up. So when you got in the car and you weren't buckling up, your kid in the back seat's like, mom, dad, we saw something at school. It says you're going to die. So it eventually changed societies that now seatbelts, I think the majority of people, vast majority of people, were just put on a seatbelt. It's an automatic. And now there's shoulder belts, lap belts, much,
Yep.
much safer that went into it.
Well,
Uh,
Volvo, so I don't know how many people know this, but I'm like a logo geek. I love this stuff. But Volvo's logo is the driver's seatbelt across the chest, right? And so they actually supposedly patent that and shared it with the world and saved a lot of lives. But that's if you ever see a Volvo, you'll see that cross. That's meant to be the seatbelt. So big deal. And they love telling people about it. It's like their thing.
That's funny.
So
I thought the Volvo symbol was always like the male symbol, like when like
yeah,
marking like
no,
a male bathroom or
yeah.
something.
If you look at
That's
any front of a Volvo, yeah, they're gonna have that crossbar across the front. Like they will not, they don't want to let that thing go.
nice.
So, which is cool. I like it. I think it's testament to their safety. They're one of the safer cars on the road and all that. And they, yeah, very much so. New moms love Volvos, right?
Yeah,
It's kind of one of
100%.
their slogans.
Yeah,
Anyways,
seatbelt wearing is now, something that everyone does. Drunk driving is no longer this ha ha. It's again one of those social taboos with pretty heavy penalties for people who do that. So what all that did was, starting in the early 1980s, every year the death per mile statistic, which is how they measured it, how many miles are driven, how many people are dying, that dropped every single year from like 1982 or 84 from when it peaked. Should be, every year been going up, 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 peaked, and then it started going down and literally went down until, I probably should have researched this a little bit, but probably 2022 is when it reversed. And why is it reversed? And why is that now going back up? Cars are infinitely more safer now than they were in the 80s
uh-huh.
with warning lights and airbags and all these types of things, but it's distracted driving. So it's everyone
Yeah,
on their phone. has now caused the fatality rate per miles driven to start increasing back up. So it's a concern all over the world. In Belgium, in my opinion, has a pretty drastic way of dealing with it. If you're holding your phone, like it has to be in your center console, can't be on your passenger seat, can't be in your hand. Kurt, my cousin, relayed to me that he, in his mind, 100% was not holding his phone. It was locked away, but his wallet looks like his phone, was holding his wallet, got pulled over. He was a few hours from home, and it's anywhere from 8 to 15 days immediate suspension of your license. Doesn't matter where you are, but you got to pull your car over on the side of the road and you're not driving. You're in the penalty box for, in his case, it was 14 days and not a huge fine. He said it was like a €175 fine, a couple $100. But he had to, call his wife, call his son to come drive out and pick up the car. And but again, not reported to your insurance company. So you have a 2-week can't drive applied immediately if you have that, which again is a lot more drastic than here in the US on things. But again, an interesting way of that kind of social system of the Belgian government skirting privacy laws on some side of the table of can't share tickets with your insurance company. Those are separate, but that they can take away your license for up to 2 weeks for being on the phone. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
There would be a lot less drivers, teenage drivers especially, in my neighborhood if they got rid of that. It's a thing. So,
Oh, I mean, you could just
anyways,
have a massive impound lot at any intersection and
yeah.
just direct people into it because especially at night when you look, the glow of everyone on their phone
Hmm.
is quite interesting. So anyways,
Well,
that's your
it's
Belgium
my
versus
navigation.
US.
Like I use it in my car to navigate. Like anywhere I go, even if I'm driving to the office and I know where I'm going, I still have my phone up with navigation running. And
Yeah,
that, there I go. I guess take my car too, but
yeah.
bummer.
So we'll
Well,
see.
yeah,
Yeah, big World Cup game between those two countries. So we'll see
yeah.
who, maybe the Belgian bus driver will be on his phone on the way to the game.
Let's hope not. We'll see. I mean, it's good to watch the games either way. It's been fun. MLR season's over too. I mean, we've got
Yeah.
lots of things to watch and keep up with. So we definitely overshot our 15-minute goal here, Mike, by double, but I guess it's just good to catch up and keep things going. So
Yeah.
thank you guys for listening. Have a happy 4th. Falcon West, we're closing a little early today so we can all get started with our weekend plans, and we'll see you back again next week.
Sounds great. Thanks, Peter. Happy birthday
All
to
right.
Braden too.
Thank you, Mike.